I'm Stella Palavecino, who will be sharing her wisdom on lab bites. That's the concept of her presentation today. Certificates are provided to anyone who's watching this webinar live. So if you attend the whole webinar, you will automatically receive an email containing your certificate after the webinar has finished. If you're watching the recording, please make sure you take note of your own professional development activity. There will be time for questions at the end of Stella's talk. Please write them in the Q&A box. The Q&A button appears when you move your mouse, when you move your cursor to the bottom of the Zoom window. If someone has already written the same question, you can click the thumbs up button next to that question to move it higher up the list rather than writing it again. And if you need help during the webinar, please contact me or Beata in the chat box. To tell you a little bit more about Stella, she is a master in TEFL, a graduate EFL teacher specialized in higher education and ICT, English phonetics and phonology, and didactics. She lectures in phonetics at teacher training colleges and translation programs in BA, Argentina, beautiful Buenos Aires. So Stella, over to you. Thanks for being here with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Taylor. Thank you very much for this nice presentation. Hello, everyone. Hello from people from all over the world, wherever you are in the world. Let me show you my share with you the slides. Okay, let's see. So here we are, lab bites. Where does lab bite comes from, right? Out of the ESL bubble and into language labs. What does it mean? Well, the thing is that within the ESL bubble, within the ESL classroom, we expose students most of the time to material that's specially designed for students of a second language. And as a consequence of this, they find it difficult to sound intelligibly enough when they speak English. Into the language labs, we are going to find all the tools that are necessary to scaffold the process between understanding authentic material and boost oral productions. This is what I'm going to present today. I tried to compile many of the tools that many teachers have been using in the language laboratory lesson, gave them a different aim and purpose, and created a kind of approach which will help a student feel the need for language acquisition of sounds and also boost perception. So where did the name comes from? I tried to combine two words, laboratory practice, all the things that you do there, and sound bites, all the selections that we make to make students notice certain points in phonological features, and then apply all the laboratory tools and teaching material we are going to create today to create the need for language acquisition and sounds acquisition. So what type of lab bite work? Maybe when you think about lab bite work, you think about the typical listen, repeat, and record. This is what we do in language laboratories. And it suggests a type of blind repetition which focuses on an auditory level. Students listen, forget, repeat, and then forget. Because language one interferes. They focus on an auditory level. So they try to understand what is being said. They are not focusing on the articulatory part of the production of the sound. So before listen and repeat, this approach suggests meaningful repetition, meaningful listening, and creates the need for sounds acquisition. Because it is not until students can listen to themselves, compare and contrast their own productions with that production of native speakers, competent speakers of language, critically, that they realize that they are not perceiving the same sounds as experts of the language are. So when they feel that need, they want to acquire new sounds, new habitual articulatory habits. And the teacher interferes with some training that they need. So what type of material can we create? So we need special material that I'm going to show you today. One of them is a silent gapped audio. How to create silent gaps so that students can focus on some sound bites, listen to that particular part of an original audio, repeat after that, compare and contrast critically, take down notes, and then ask for the teacher's interference so as to acquire new habitual, new articulatory practice sounds. And well, this is an important thing, and the material, the audio material that we can get does not come in this format. We had to make them ourselves. Another important tool, because students complain they cannot understand when competent speakers of the language speak because they do it so fast, is slowing down the rhythm of an original audio. How can we do that? Well, so if we try to create material or show students a tool to slow down the rhythm of what they are actually listening to, they will be able to grasp some phonological features that have been presented to them. So this is my approach to lab bites. And of course, as an ESL teacher, everything starts in the classroom, right? And this is a classroom I used to teach some time ago. It's very challenging for both the teacher and student to be exposed to authentic material. And when they do, they feel it is really difficult to understand because competent speakers of the language speak too fast. Or if they watch a film, they need to read the script so as to understand what is being said. So if we don't train students to perceive better and articulate better and change those habits that we unconsciously acquire for language 1 and compare and contrast that with language 2, they will sound unintelligibly. But the thing is that they need to realize that they sound unintelligibly when they speak. So they say, for example, they want to say pin and they say bin. Or they cannot make a distinction in vowel quality and so they say live for leave. And they feel really disappointed. You know, in Argentina, English is being taught as when students are in first grade, and when they finish secondary school, they cannot understand authentic English, or they cannot enunciate 2 words together without sounding unintelligibly. Perhaps they were too much exposed to ESL material. And that's not wrong, but there's something else we should do. ESL material is unrealistic because people or speakers who record that message modify the language just to help the students accomplish certain aims. There are not connected speech features. They speak slowly and clearly. Enunciations are very simple. So that's not the reality. And when they want to say something in English, where they end up saying a different thing. So take a look at this. This is what some students were trying to say. Of course not, this is not what they were trying to say, but this is what the listener understood. What do you think they are saying? What do you think students in number 1, 2, 3, or 4 are saying? Please write your answers on the chat box. I gave you 2 or 3 seconds. What are they trying to say? Number 1, America. Students was trying to say America. And then the second one, ice cream. The speaker was trying to say ice cream. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Sun sang. Well, as you see, unless we do something, we make our students notice certain phonological features and boost perception, they won't be able to cope with oral communication, right? Practice makes perfect. Do you agree? What type of practice is most important or most efficient for pronunciation? What do you think? Please write your answers on the chat box. What type of approach was efficient for you? Yes, meaningful practice, bottom-up approach, developing phonological awareness, recording themselves, not repetition, practice and instant feedback, peer conversation, practice in context. Yes, listen and repeat doesn't work, but it's part of the training, right? I agree, pronunciation in English is more than listen and repeat, and it should be meaningful. Because listen and repeat misdirects the student's attention to the ear. They are trying to retain what they listen to. They are not focusing here on the sounds they are making. So they should also be focusing on what they are producing at an articulatory level. We develop speech habits that we are not conscious of in our own language. That's why it is so difficult to pronounce well in a second language. We carry with us all the speech habits from our first language, but we need to notice how we position the lips, the tongue, the jaw, the muscles when we are producing a sound in a second language. So produce that sound in language 1 and then transfer that into the second language. For example, in Spanish, when students encounter the word three for the first time, they tend to say tree or free, because the th sound, the voiceless dental fricative th, does not exist in Spanish. So the mind tries to accommodate that sound that's been retained here at an auditory level to any existent sound in Spanish. You see how difficult it is? So unless you make a student notice where to position the lips, the tip of the tongue between the upper and the lower teeth, they will end up producing a different sound and completely unintelligibly. Now, the job of a teacher when working on pronunciation is similar to a swimming coach because it is a coordinated skill. The practice can be associated with sports because of the psychomotor component of pronunciation. So listen and repeat should be more than listen, repeat, and record. It should be listen, repeat, make students listen to themselves, become aware of something that they need, and then the teacher interferes for teaching once the need has been created for sound acquisition, not before that. Now, conversational breakdown also occurs in everyday life. And what happens when you don't understand something? You ask the speaker to repeat what they have said. And the speaker does that, he repeats, probably slowing down the pace, the rhythm, and also amplifying the pitch of the voice to make things clearer. So what if we can recreate all these repair conversational breakdown tools into the language laboratory practice and create tools for that? So we can do that. Yes, definitely. In the language laboratory lessons, we can make students listen to something many times at a different speed, amplifying the pitch of the voice, slowing down the rhythm, and trying to boost perception. And you might think that language laboratories are very expensive, but they are not. You know, there's a program called Audacity, which is free, and you can download it on your computer. There are some tutorials on YouTube, and if you don't find any tutorials, please email me. I will send you the tutorials. It's very simple. It's very simple. So you set up a language laboratory and your students too. So instead of continuing with the listen and repeat, which is blind, you can create a need for listening, repeating, and boosting perception and production in such a way that your students can judge themselves whether they are sounding intelligibly enough or not. You don't need special equipment, and the listen and repeat shouldn't be controlled by the teacher. It should be controlled by students themselves. So here is Audacity. So I'm going to show you in a minute how to edit audios. Audacity is an audio editor, and it allows you to do all the things I've told you. Of course, in order to be able to work with bites, sound bites, we need to create some teaching material. And in original audios, we are going to create silent gaps so that students can listen to some chunks, some audios, snips of original audios, and repeat after the competent speaker. Then they will compare and contrast their production with the production of a competent speaker, take down notes, listen to that critically. And the need for acquisition of new articulatory habits have been created. I'm going to show you how to create these silent gapped audios today. I'm also going to show you how to amplify the pitch of your voice, how to slow down the tempo, record your voice, compare and contrast, make some reflection critically, and finally students will create their own MP3s, which I called hybrid audio versions. Why? Because they are a mixture of competence native speakers, students' audios, and we create a new audio, right? So before I start showing you how to work with Audacity, do you have any questions? Oh, yeah, I can see that you believe Audacity is a great tool. Do you have any questions so far?
No, Stella, there are no questions for time.
Okay, so I'm going to go on. Audacity. Can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes, we can.
All right. So Audacity is opened on my computer. So as you see, there are some buttons I'm going to explain what they are, and some others I'm going to explain throughout the presentation. I'm sorry, it is in Spanish, so I'm going to try to translate what the labels mean. The label I'm showing you at the moment is the file. So when you click on file, you are going to be able to import the audio you want to work with. I'm going to work with a silent gapped audio first, and I'm going to show you how to listen, record, compare and contrast, and create a hybrid version of your audio. Later on, I'm going to show you how to create a silent gapped audio and slowing down the pace of an original audio, right? This is how a silent gapped audio looks like.
Hello,
Listen to
I'm
it.
Jeff Lindsay.
So there is a silent gap where students are supposed to record their voices.
Today I want to talk about
Another silent gap.
intonation.
Okay, and it goes on and on and on. Imagine that I have selected this audio by Jeff Lindsay. Jeff Lindsay is a very famous phonetician. He's got a YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to his channels and find lots of material. He has recorded a lot of audios on intonation, vowel quality, sounds, and lovely. So I'm going to work on false, and I'm going to select this chunk, this sound bite.
Intonation.
Intonation. In general, Spanish speakers don't tend to say intonation. Our pitch is flat. So every time they have to say intonation, we tend to say intonation. And unless you make them notice that they are not producing false, they believe they are. They believe they are producing false, but they are not. So here comes a moment when they need to listen to themselves and say, yes, I'm not producing false. So it is not unless they listen to themselves that they realize they are not producing a fall as competence of the language. So it's the same acoustic sound, but different perceptions. What do I do now? Students listen to that sound bite. You click on tracks. Can you see tracks up there? Click there. You add a new track. It should be stereo. And a new timeline is opened below. I'll do it again. You position after the sound bite you want your students to work on. Generate tracks, a new one, stereo. A new timeline is opened. So you record your voice saying intonation. So you stop and you select the competent speaker and then your production. And listen to that chunk.
Intonation.
Intonation. So okay. Stop. So intonation. So if you are not happy with this production, you get rid of this part by clicking on this X here, and you do it again. So you place the cursor after the sound bite, track, a new one, stereo, and you try again. Intonation. Stop. And you repeat the procedure, your students repeat the procedure until they are happy with this.
Intonation.
Intonation. Oh, stop. So we stop again. And once, well, probably at this point, the students will ask you to do something to produce false. Well, you can tell them that false are like Hollywood stars. You should produce a step up before you go on a fall. You don't stay flat as we do in Spanish. Well, once they have worked on all the sound bites you have selected, you click on File, you export the audio as an MP3, and you give it a name. For example, I'm going to call it I'm going to save it here. I'm going to call it 111. Save it to my computer, accept everything. Yes, this is a special program for musicians. The students are not musicians, so they are not going to give this audio an album name or the like. So if I look for the file on my computer, you can listen to it.
Hello, I'm Jeff Lindsay. Today I want to talk about intonation.
You see? Well, in that way, students create hybrid versions, and then, well, they can listen to themselves again, listen to that critically, and you interfere. They need to be focusing on the articulatory level. They need to focus on what they cannot produce, and they ask you for help, so they want to learn. The need for sound acquisition has been created. This is fabulous. Now, let me go on with the second part. You want to create, well, this audio, of course, I'm sure you want to create a silent out audio. So again, you click on File, you import the audio. This one is the original one. So what I suggest is that you get rid of the unwanted part. You don't want your students to work with such a long audio. So we get rid of this part by clicking on, well, scissors up there, or this symbol. Can you see? It says cutting, the cutting symbol. So you get rid of the unwanted parts, like this. Okay, this is what was left. By clicking on the arrows here, you can move the spectrogram as you want. And another important thing that you need to do is zoom out so as to see the spectrogram clearly. You zoom out a little bit more, like this. Now, in this way, you can see the spectrogram and identify the sound bites you want your students to work with. So, this is ready to be work for the teacher. I mean, it's easier for the teacher. So we click on this selection button. We select a chunk, for example, this one.
James Bond.
Bond, James Bond.
Bond.
Okay, imagine that you want to create a silent gap there. So you place the cursor here, generate silence. 5 seconds will do. There it is. And again, imagine that this is the selection you want to make. You listen to it again. You place the cursor here again. Generate silence. 5 seconds. There it is. And again, you position the selection button there. Generate silence. 5 seconds again. And there it is. And you keep on doing all this. And again, you click on File, Export as an MP3 here, and you repeat the same procedure as I've shown you before. See? Now, another important tool is slowing down the pace. How to make competent speakers of the language speak slower. So you click on the original audio again. And perhaps you want to select this part. Let's listen to it.
Difficult. This is de-accenting.
Okay, probably this one. So imagine that I want my students to listen to this soundbite as lower. You click on effects, change the tempo. And if you listen to this chunk again, this soundbite is going to sound as lower.
Difficult. This is de-accenting.
All right. So they can listen and repeat the chunk they don't understand or you want to focus on once and again. Maybe to focus on, well, vowel quantity or pre-fortis clipping or whatever effect you want to make them notice is lower. So it's a great tool. Do you have any questions so far? No? No questions?
Stella, there are a few questions, but I think we can leave them to until the end.
Okay, lovely.
Just someone wanted to know whether they need to ask their students to download Audacity.
Yes, they do. Yes. Everybody needs to install Audacity on their computers. Yes, and it's very easy. It's very simple. So you don't have to worry about that. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube, or you can email me and I can, well, share my tutorials with you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen again. Now, summing up, I have shown you how to make a hybrid audio version. So you click on File, you open your silent gap version, students listen to a soundbite, you click on the selection button after that soundbite, you add a new track, a stereo one, a new timeline is opened, and students can record their voices there. Now, how to create lab-like material. It looks like this and it sounds like this.
Hello, I'm Jeff Lindsay. Today, I want to talk about intonation.
All right. How to make silent gap audios. First, you import an MP3. You select a chunk that your students want to work on. I mean, any phonological features you want them to focus on. Click the cursor after that soundbite. Hit on Generate Silence, and then select a second snip. Click on Generate Silence again. And once you have followed all the procedure with all the dialogues, all the original audios you want to work on, export that silent gap version as an MP3. Then it is ready to be sent to your students. Students open it on their Audacity program. And then, well, they listen, compare, contrast. After listening and comparing and contrasting and working on that critically, you teach them or you focus at an articulatory level. So they practice all the articulatory features that you want to focus on, and then they listen to that again and try to repeat meaningfully. It's not just listen, repeat, and that's it. No, it's a meaningful repetition. It's beyond the listen and repeat. How to slow down the tempo? Well, slowing down the tempo is very simple. You need to open any original audio. You click on the labels up there, effects, and you change the tempo of the selection you made. An important thing to notice is that Audacity has a lot of tools that are self-explanatory. For example, the ones you can see up there, they stand for the stop button, rewind button, fast forward, record, play, yes, as in all devices. Now, how to follow a lab bite procedure? Students listen to the lab bite material that you have selected. They record after the original audio within the silent gaps. They create a hybrid audio version. They listen to that version critically, take down notes, and realize that there is something they are not producing. False, foul quality, any connected speech features that you want to focus on. And you teach after that, after the first listening, because the need has been created for sound acquisition, not before that. After that, the students do follow the same procedure again. They listen to that sound bite, they record their voices, and they try to sound as intelligibly as they can. Once they are happy with their audio, they send it to you to get some feedback. Now, feedback can be given by the teacher and also by their peers. Students can upload their audios on a platform like Edmodo. Edmodo works as Facebook. You post something and people can listen to it and make some comments. Sometimes it's necessary to hear from their peers. I mean, to get some feedback from their peers as well. So this is fantastic for me because you can create a need for meaningful repetition and meaningful acquisition of the language, meaningful acquisition of sounds. They want to sound better because they realize that there is something that they lack. If we focus on the learning side of this approach, we can divide it into 3 different stages: the cognitive stage, associative lab bite stage, and independent stage. And at the cognitive lab bite stage, students raise awareness of something that they lack and they want to get. During the associative lab bite stage, the teacher interferes, training students at an articulatory level. And finally, when students listen to the original audio again, compare and contrast their productions with the competent speakers' production, and try to sound intelligibly enough, they become independent. Now, students are really very happy with the results they get from this type of approach. So I'm going to share with you some feedback that I got from my students. You can also get some feedback from your own students as well. So feedback can be from everywhere to enrich this approach.
Working with Audacity was useful because we can listen the audio several times, and we could record ourselves and then listening to realize what we do wrong or what can we improve. Then we could listen the audio slowly that realize and focus on pronunciation.
This is a general English course.
I think it's very useful because when you record yourself, then you can hear many times what you say and you can put in slow motion so you can properly hear the details of what you are saying.
And you can improve your pronunciation.
Yes, so hear what you are missing in the pronunciation.
I think yes, because when you put an audio in slow motion, you can hear pretty well which word is saying, because of the
accent.
Accent is kind of hard for a Spanish talking to understand what he's saying.
Well, here are the references, and that's all. Let's see. I'm sure you have lots of questions about this. Beata, do we have questions?
Yeah, thank you very much, Stella. And now we've
You're
had
welcome.
lots of audience questions. Apologies if we don't get through all of them. Let me have a look. The first one is from Lady Rodriguez. Here it is. I usually teach my students some very basic things about articulatory phonetics, and usually it works when it's broad and practical. But would you consider this process more of a saturation for our students, as in it's adding more theoretical weight on our students' learning process, perhaps not up to teaching IPA, but I do wonder if perhaps I'm walking along the curve and straining them.
Well, I think that when it comes to pronunciation, there is something that we need to focus always. Maybe you can do it when you work on listening. I mean, you don't do it all the time if you're teaching a general English course, as the one I showed you some seconds ago. So I follow all this procedure when I work on listening. Why is that? Sometimes you prepare students for international examinations and they need to pass a listening test, and the listening test is very hard and they keep on complaining. They speak very hard, very fast. I cannot understand what I say. So what I do is I do a kind of, during the pre-task, I follow this procedure with some snips of the audio that I know students are going to find difficulty with, like connected speech features or phonological features they cannot cope with. So I work through that in a kind of preparation for the listening, and then they do the listening practice. And when it comes to speaking skills, they apply what they've learned, because they need for language, for sound acquisition has been created. So it's not that I do it all the time with general English courses, but just when I'm teaching listening, and not when I'm teaching speaking, because it's when you focus, if they focus on listening, they need to learn how to articulate well. I mean, if they cannot produce the sound, then they won't be able to recognize it. So you need to work in different lessons, not just a lesson where you practice just with the audios.
Okay, thank you. Now the next question is from Carlos Daniel Oviedo. Can they use Audacity on their mobile?
No, unfortunately not. No, that's a shame, isn't it? No, they need their laptops, PCs.
Next question then, it's from Marcelo Roballo. Could you recommend any technique to teach and internalize the use of weak forms?
Yes, of course. I mean, the slowing down tool. For Spanish speakers, very difficult to do these weak forms and content words and grammatical words. But if you listen to that in a slow motion, students can realize that the grammatical words are pronounced at a different pitch as the content words. And on top of that, Audacity will allow you to see the spectrogram. So they will realize that the spectrogram in weak forms are narrower, are thinner than the content words. So they see a line like this. And this is fabulous, really, because this caters for visual learners, auditory learners. So it's like a multisensory approach. Definitely, yes.
Okay. Now another question from Michael Birch. Audacity is a very impressive tool, but how good is the student uptake? It demands a lot of time and patience from them, doesn't it?
Yes, that's the reason why I suggest only working on sound bites, something that you select, not with whole recordings, right? So you need to work on an original audio, make your selections. You want your students to practice, I mean, a very short dialogue and focus on certain sound bites. And then, well, once you work on that focus in particular, and they notice just applying all the techniques I showed you today, slowing down the tempo, listen to it again, recording, comparing and contrasting, listen to themselves critically. Well, it takes like 10-15 minutes. So that's the reason why audios should be short, and you need to make a selection, as I showed you today, falls, for example.
Thanks. We do have quite a few more questions, if you don't mind.
Of course.
There's another one from Amanda Avison. I'm interested in how helpful the students find a visual representation of their speech as compared to the original. Do you think this helps?
Come again?
I'm interested in how helpful the students find the visual representation of their speech as compared to the original. Do you think this helps?
Yes, definitely. For example, in falls, I didn't have much time to show you how to work with spectrograms today in this presentation, but they look like funnels in a horizontal position. And so, for example, high falls and low falls, they are easily distinguishable. High falls are wider in the spectrogram than low falls, and they fall at the end. I mean, they look like a peak of a mountain or a funnel in a horizontal position. And well, I have other representations for other tones, which are really very interesting. When you start looking into it, you are going to find out the shapes of the tones. They're not as accurate as when you find them in Pratt, for example, but they are very, very much distinguishable. Yes.
Thank you for this. There's another question from Anastasia Kirkova-Naskova. What's the ideal number of students to work with in a session like this? Do they do it on their own as homework assignment or in class?
Both. First, you need to teach them how to work with all the tools in class. But once they get the grip of it, they can work as homework. It's a combination of both, I think. Yes, it takes up some time of the class, but it gives really good results. It changes their pronunciation and boosts perception, which is the main thing.
Now, another question from Coral Cafaro. Have the students shown progress in the production of speech after the lab sessions? Does it take long to observe positive changes?
Well, the first thing you notice is changes at perception level, right? They can perceive better, and in time, they improve their speaking skills.
Thank you. And another question from Amanda Avison. How slow is it useful to make the speech? There was a moment when you were slowing it down, so how slow can it be?
50%. Otherwise, it is distorted.
And Mariana here is asking, how often do you suggest using this app to get good results? Adults get really frustrated when they do not understand or can't see the results quickly.
Every time you do a listening lesson, well, go for it. And it's really very helpful because they notice they can understand. So they don't feel so disappointed when they are listening. Since the first result you can get is just improving perception, it's a very good tool for listening. And in time, or as a consequence of this, they sound more intelligible.
And do you think, that's from anonymous attendee, do you think it's crucial for foreigners to pronounce words in second language or foreign language perfectly in order to communicate?
No, I don't think so. No, what I was suggesting is that they sound intelligibly enough. For example, I gave you the example of tree and free in Spanish. The same happens when they are saying, for example, the they. What do they mean? They mean the day. So, and it is not until they listen to themselves saying the they that they realize that they need to place the tip of the tongue on the alveolar ridge to produce a da sound. And so they realize they are not sounding intelligibly enough. As examples I've shown you, America for America, or ice cream for ice cream, for example. Well, so its perception will prevails.
I have a few more questions. Are you okay with that?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so here Mariana Fernandez started with a short comment. She said that materials should be more authentic. Students should be offered more realistic language. And then Carlos added to it, but isn't it this argument over the lack of authenticity of materials a bit more complex? Recent materials have been attempting to present more authentic approaches to listening.
Yes, it's true, but I try to just go to the point of my presentation. I mean, it's not an extreme. I mean, try to vary, because when students watch Netflix, for example, or a film or listen to songs, they say, well, I cannot understand what I say unless I read the script. So this is a complaint that we hear from our students most often than not. So yes, it's an argument that it's for another webinar, right?
Of course. Another question coming back to Audacity, Janet Auckland is asking, can't sound distortion be a problem?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, if you are slowing down the tempo of an original audio, if you distort it too much, it could be a problem. But when students listen to native speakers or competent speakers of the language saying something slowly, they can cope with this and they can repeat at that speed the phrase. So that's an achievement, right? Once, well, they have automatized that sound or that articulation because it's like Jim, well, they're going to say it more naturally, but it helps if you, in a way, reduce the speed to a 50% of the real speed.
And there was also a question about children. So Andrea here said that she used Audacity with 9-year-old students and they recorded themselves reading aloud. Have you ever used that with younger students?
Okay, with younger students, I recommend phonics, definitely. It's through games, characters. I mean, they can repeat the trick that the puppets or the characters or the songs make. For example, Annie Apple says ah, and they remember the songs. And when they repeat the songs in a very amusing way, they can produce actually the sound that you are teaching. So in my own experience, phonics works marvelously with children. It's a different approach. Anyway, if you work with Audacity and it gives good results, go ahead. I mean, I think children learned differently.
Okay, a few more questions still left. I think
wow.
myself. Let's make a deal. 3 more. Michael's asking whether Audacity can generate a transcript. No, it can't, from what I remember.
No, but you can do it yourself. I mean, as I told you, maybe in a second webinar, I can show you how to do a script on Audacity, because there's a tool that says add labels, and you add the label and you write down the script if you want the script, or well, the IPA transcription if you want to.
And Adam Scott, our coordinator for PronSIG, how do students respond to using this technology?
Well, I played my students' feedback. They like it. I mean, you need to know when to place Audacity throughout your lesson plan. I mean, it's not always, it's just for a listening activity or when they have to record their voices, but they like it because it's something new, and listening to themselves is something that they are interested in, and it is student-centered because it creates the need for acquiring new sounds, new habitual articulatory habits, and boosting perception. They realize they cannot understand English. They do realize that they are not producing the same sounds in the same phrase as competent speakers of the language are. So there is a need that is being created, so they respond positively.
Thank you very much for this. Thank you for
You're very much welcome.
all our questions. Well, that's all we have time for. Thank you again so much for that incredible talk. If anyone wants to continue the conversation on this topic, you can comment or reply to a post dedicated to this talk on our Facebook page, on our Twitter and our Instagram channels. I will be sharing all the details in a moment in the chat box. Just give me a second. So here we have all the details as far as our social media and our website is concerned. Don't forget about our blog. Anna and Victor have written a few posts recently, and there'll be more posts appearing on our website, pronsig.iatefl.org. Just before we go, I'd like to remind you that the certificates will be available and will be sent to you by IATEFL by email. So do expect an email soon. Thank you, Stella, very much for this.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Goodbye.
Now, just follow the links I've posted in the chat to use the preferred platform, share your thoughts and connect with others. And if you do connect with others, remember to use the hashtag #PronSig so others can follow your comments. And just before we go, I'd like to remind you that as a social media assistant myself, we're still looking for a social media assistant to work with me. It's a great opportunity. So if you join PronSig, why don't you volunteer for the social media assistant post? And if you're not a member already, you can find information about joining IATEFL and PronSig on our website, pronsig.iatefl.org. And this webinar will be available to view again on our YouTube channel early next week. Thank you very much for joining us today. Huge thanks to Stella Palavecino, and until next time, it's goodbye from all of us at PronSig.